The build, yeah.
Harry, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I think we are.
What's that? Okay.
What time is it?
3 after.
I'm at 4 after.
I got right on the dot. So,
2.
well, good evening, everyone. This is, let me start by saying Happy New Year. It's a new year. This is the first meeting of this board this year. And we will start by rising for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a quorum. Louise has a conflict tonight, so she will not be here. First item is to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next item is the mayor's report, and I don't have anything new to report tonight. Had a nice long holiday period, so we're back to work tonight and next time I'm sure we'll have something to report. Next item is Citizens Forum. Do we have anybody
No, sir.
signed up? And then the next item then is approval of the minutes of December 22nd, 2016.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I was not here last meeting.
Oh, yeah. Moving to business items. First one is approval of amendment to the personnel policies and procedures compensation policy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take this one tonight. Well, sir, we have a large list of personnel policies and procedures in the town of Farragut. One of the things that we've always had as a internal policy, but never really written on paper, is how we handle compensation of employees in the town of Farragut. The personnel committee felt like it would be a good idea to go ahead and put this on paper, to just write down basically how we operate as a town going forward. And so we had a meeting back in November to talk about this. One of the things that we do is, as employees go through the ranks and as they go through their ranges, we've always used a merit-based system. So it's basically you're going to have a performance evaluation done by your supervisor. Based on that performance evaluation and how much we're able to give for merit increases, then you will get some percentage of your pay as a merit increase each and every year. Many cities use step plans, which is a bump up every year no matter what you do. They may do COLAs, so you may have an automatic kind of percentage or two a year based on the cost of living that's added to it as well. But we haven't really done that as a town. But what we have done has been consistent about the way we do the merit-based for all employees if we're able to do that and our budget's okay for everyone to do that. So the attached personnel policies and procedures compensation policy is just that. We have worked through all of the list of items here, with the exception of one at the very bottom of the page. And so we have two separate exhibits for you tonight. One's Exhibit A, which is a staff proposed policy, and one's Exhibit B, which is the personnel committee proposed policy. I'll just run you maybe through Exhibit B first at the very bottom, number 7 and 8. They talk about that any time someone gets to the maximum of their range, that person's considered topped out. So when they're topped out, they can't get any more salary increases at that point in time. But if we're able to, we do sometimes give them a one-time bonus based on whatever amount we could give them. Usually not more, would never be more than the percentage that we would give for all employees. But it would make sure that their salary was capped. They'd just get that one-time bonus, but they couldn't continue to elevate up the range with their salary. So the Personnel Committee, two things that they talked about. One was that further base salary increases shall not be given to employees who are at or above the maximum for the salary range for their position. It makes no mention of the possible opportunities for one-time bonus structure. In the second part, was another area they wanted to put in here that salary increases may be relatively smaller or time intervals between increases lengthened for employees who have progressed above their midpoints for their salary ranges compared with employees who are lower in their ranges. Frankly, I just disagree with that philosophy on compensation. I believe that when you have an employee who's been here for 20 plus years and does the exact same job as someone who's been here for 2, and they do an excellent job, they get an excellent evaluation, they should be able to get the same percentage merit increase as the person that's working side by side with them each and every day. We're a pretty flat organization. We don't have a lot of opportunity for advancement. So for those employees that are here long term, we like to give them incentive to be loyal and to be here with the town as long as possible. So one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that staff is recommending, is amending that language, which would be items 6 and 7. And at item 6 at the very end, you'll see it in blue, it says the salary increases for positions above the midpoint may be awarded for employees achieving exemplary annual performance reviews. Again, may, depending on how their employee performance review goes. And then item 7 there, employees may not receive additional base pay increases above the maximum of their salary range. Depending on budgetary constraints, these employees may be eligible for one-time bonuses as approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, which we've done for the last 7 years that I've been here during the budget process. So with that, the staff would recommend approving Exhibit A. The Personnel Committee recommended Exhibit B, and we take it to you, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
From what you just said, you said that in Exhibit A, item 7, we have been doing that for the last few years?
We have, yes, sir. It's a typical policy that most cities have. Whenever you get somebody that's topped out, many times our ranges may not change for a couple, 2, 3, or maybe even longer years. And so instead of just having that employee not be able to get any opportunity for any additional compensation, many times we'll do a one-time bonus. So in essence, their salary is not changing. They just get a one-time bonus based on their performance evaluation criteria that year and how much those one-time bonuses are for the year.
So even though it's currently not in our compensation policy, we have been doing this, is what you're saying?
Well, none of this is we don't have a compensation policy right now. It's been a practice that we've been doing for several years. All we're doing is taking what we've been practicing and putting it on paper as a policy.
The other question I have is, how often do we change the range and the midpoint?
We look at the market every year.
I just said I was going to ask the same question.
Sorry. We look at the market every year. So Janet Wiedekind, our HR manager, she looks at all the cities around here, does tests of the market, sees where we're at from time to time, which we did last year, actually. We did a larger study and found that we did have some people that were a little further away from the midpoint that had been here for quite a few number of years, probably should have been there and even maybe a little beyond the midpoint at this point, and we made some adjustments to that. You don't have to do that very often. That's the first time that we've had to do that since I've been here, so that's been about 7 years. So typically it could be anywhere between 4, 5, 6 years or so, and it all depends on how you're moving through the ranges, how many one-time adjustments you may make to the ranges. We typically look at those every 2 to 3 years. So we'll keep the same range. We just adjusted them this past year. We probably won't make adjustments this year in the budget. We may not make adjustments the next year, but we look at the market. If the market's showing that the cost of living is really going through the roof very quickly, we'll probably adjust to that a little faster. But the market over the last few years has been a little slower, so we haven't had to make as many adjustments as quickly.
I've been out of the corporate world for about 6 years now, but that seemed to be something that corporations I've worked for did change every year based on cost of living. So,
And we absolutely could, and like I said, a lot of cities do COLAs, so they will adjust and do maybe a 1% or 2% COLA every year for all their employees, and then have a merit on top of that. Certainly, we could go to a system like that. It would make those adjustment years less, obviously, because you wouldn't have to do that all the time. But every 5 to 7 years, you still might have to go back and look at that market and possibly make a smaller adjustment at that point in time. It's just not something we've done, but certainly we could look at that if the board's wanting to maybe look to do something like that instead.
Help me understand the differences between Exhibit A, as prepared by the town staff, as I understand it, and Exhibit B, prepared by the Personnel Committee.
It really just comes down to the last two items, Alderman Markley, and truly item 6 on the Exhibit A. Basically, I think what the Personnel Committee was looking at was we have right now 19 employees that are above the midpoint of the range. We have 50 total, so all the rest of the employees are below the midpoint. This past year, as I mentioned earlier, we had a few employees that we had to make adjustments for. There were 7 out of 50 that we had to make adjustments for to try to get them through the midpoint a little quicker. And so their philosophy was, well, let's give the people that are below the midpoint a higher, say, merit increase, and the people that are above the midpoint a lower merit increase. And frankly, I just disagree with that philosophy long term. Not to say we may not need to do that 1 year. Maybe we're having a tough budget year. Maybe we look at the whole, all of our employees and think this would be a good time to make some kind of adjustment like that. I think if we put it in a policy to do that every year, though, I think we're going to wind up losing long-term employees because they're going to get to the point where they can't ever get to the top out of their range. And frankly, we do have some department heads that have been here 25 plus years. They're nowhere close to being at the top of their range. You'd figure some would be a little closer than that, but frankly, they're not. So, that could be for a number of factors. We could have adjusted ranges over the years and bumped those things up to where they're not there. But besides the point, I think one of the things I worry about is just the morale of the employees going forward. If we were to, again, not give them the ability to at least try to get the highest merit pool that they could get every year. And I think the compensation philosophy, if you look at the very first line, it talks about the primary objective of the town's compensation program is to attract, retain, motivate, and reward qualified employees who demonstrate a commitment to the town of Farragut. And I do think that those are key terms there, and I think we would have a problem motivating people maybe a few years down the road that they are above the midpoint and they're not seeing the same level of increases, let's say, that everybody else is getting. I could see that being an issue going long term down the road.
So I don't see an item 6 in Exhibit B. Is that
I think it's a typo, but if you would, if you
seems
look
to read
at
the same, but it's just not numbered.
If you look at the first word that says recognize that the salary range, that should be item 6
Right,
on
okay.
that range. Right. So it really comes down to number 8 on the Exhibit B. It says exactly what I just talked to you about, that smaller increases would be given for those employees that are above the midpoint. And then the opposite is that language is just not in the Exhibit A that the staff is recommending.
I, for one, would like to suggest that we add some type of adjustment on a yearly basis, maybe based on COLA.
Would you do that in addition to or in place of?
I think in addition to. We've got an outstanding staff of employees. And to motivate them, I think we need to keep moving that range and keep moving that midpoint. And we've got some people that are excellent that are going to be maxing out. So I think there may be a need at times for the one-time bonus as well.
The one-time bonus rarely comes up. I'll just tell you that. Maybe we will have a couple of employees a year that hit that mark. The next year, maybe a couple of more. So at the most, I think we may have had 5 or 6 employees at one time hit that top out range before the ranges wind up getting adjusted again down the road. If the aldermen want to do anything with the cost of living, I may just recommend saying something about we may add a cost of living adjustment based on budgetary constraints and approval by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, some language like that, if that's agreeable to the board. That way, as we look at it, we can say, all right, this is one of those years where we need to do that, and maybe there's a small merit or no merit at all, depending on the budget that we would have, or there could be no COLA at all and just a merit increase. It gives you a little flexibility to do either or, depending on where we're at.
I like that. What kind of language could we, what can we put on here to put this in the form where we can make a motion?
Let me write this out real quick, and I'll give it right back to you.
I guess technically, someone needs to make a motion that we approve Addendum A, and then we can have discussion and add modifying amendments to it. So I'll make a motion that we approve Exhibit A, compensation policy for the town of Farragut.
I'll second.
Okay, if you'd like a little, sorry.
So I guess we're ready for a vote on that. Once that motion is approved, then we can work on Addendum A.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, yes.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I could offer up this language. We could add an item number 8 to Exhibit A and say the town may add a cost of living adjustment based on the budgetary constraints as approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Read that one more time, please.
The town may add a cost of living adjustment based on budgetary constraints as approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I think the key word there is may. That's just in case. That gives you flexibility in case, again, we need to go one way or the other based on the budget.
Does that satisfactorily address your concern?
Yes, it
Alderman
does.
Pinchot?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to compensation A, to the motion to approve Exhibit A, compensation policy.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. The next item then is approval of Economic Development Committee Charter amendments.
Thank you, Mayor. The Economic Development Committee has been working the last couple of months on some charter amendments for their committee. They looked at the role of the committee, how it's changed since it was first adopted back in 2009, I believe, is the initial time the committee was put together. Several of our committee members were on the original committee and still are today, so they had a good background history in how that has been working. And I think one of the things that they looked at as part of their charter is, again, when they first started, they were attempting to be a little bit more of an active committee and more day-to-day kind of operational type things when it comes to economic development. Now we have the Farragut Business Alliance, who's taken on a lot of those roles and responsibilities that the original committee was trying to handle. The Farragut West Knox Chamber of Commerce has also taken on a couple of different roles and responsibilities over the years. So with this, I think the biggest changes that you will notice from this charter, first is the changing of the name of the committee to the Farragut Economic Development Advisory Committee. They really felt like they needed the term advisory in there, as that's what they are doing, is recommending different policies and things like that. They don't have a approval position to just have a weight of law on something like the Planning Commission or the Board of Mayor and Aldermen would. And so that was one of the things they talked about quickly. All the other things can come from Section 3, and it's more changes in language that really deals with looking at establishing goals each year, recommending policies to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, providing an annual report to the board. And then probably the biggest thing that the committee does now is reviewing the MOUs with the chamber, with the Farragut Business Alliance, with our retail partners like Retail Strategies recently that the board approved another contract extension for. They review all of those contracts that deal with the economic development initiatives of the town. So with that, the committee unanimously approved the charter amendments that are here, and certainly we recommend approval of them as well.
Any discussion? Are you in agreement with their suggested changes?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we had a good conversation about it. I thought all their amendments were they clarified the role of the committee. I think that's the biggest thing that it did.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to the Farragut Economic Development Committee charter.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next item is approval of reappointment to the Economic Development Committee.
William Britt has missed 3 of the meetings, which means his term has expired, and he is seeking reappointment. And the motion is to reappoint William Britt to the Economic Development Committee.
Will's not here, is he?
He's not. No,
He's
sir.
not here.
I've got a concern. He states that his job is affecting his attendance. I just wondered, do anybody know, is that going to change?
Mr. Britt and I talked about it a little bit at the last Economic Development Committee meeting because he was there for it. Unfortunately, he couldn't vote because he had missed the 3 meetings. But he certainly was going to try to do better over the next few months. His schedule, he's with the military, and they had been moving him around quite a bit when it comes to having to fly different places, unfortunately. And so he never knows when he has to go. But I think certainly you can continue to monitor his attendance over the next few months, and if he doesn't make all the meetings again, then obviously you can look whether you need to reappoint him or not.
How's his performance been? Is he a contributing member when he's there? Is he?
He is, yeah. He asks some very good questions, and usually any other business item of the Economic Development Committee, he asks many questions that have a lot of discussion about. So he's been a good member.
I'll have to admit, he's an excellent member, so that's not an issue. I was just concerned about his workload going forward.
Yeah.
We're actually lost another member of the EDC, so we're going to have to fill that position as well. So I hate to lose Brett.
Mm-hmm. Well, it
Yeah, we
sounds
do
like
have-
sounds like a recommendation that we reinstate him. Make that motion.
I'll make a motion that we, let's see, where are we? Reappoint to the Farragut Economic Development Committee.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one ordinance. This is first reading, ordinance 16-26, an ordinance to amend the Farragut zoning ordinance by rezoning a portion of parcel 116.01, tax map 130, north of Farragut Commons and Chapel Point, from R2 to FPD to R4 and FPD 8.63 acres. This is Diversified Holdings applicant.
Okay, this property is east of the West Side Unitarian Church, west of Chapel Point subdivision, and kind of north and west of the Farragut Commons development off of Grigsby Chapel Road. The rezoning request involving this property actually initially was started back in August with the Planning Commission. Then they had some discussion with the applicant, and the applicant came back in October for some additional discussion about what the plan was for the property, and what the property currently, the applicant has a little over 16 and a half acres that's zoned R4. That's attached single family, similar to what's behind the town hall or what you see at Chapel Point or Farragut Commons, those type of developments. They have, he has a little bit over 8.5 acres that's currently zoned R2, which we'll talk about here in a minute. That's the yellow portion of the property with the diagonal lines on kind of the northeast part of the property. And then he has about 7.3 acres that is currently zoned regional commercial, the red portion of that map to the far northeast that actually abuts Campbell Lakes Drive and the interstate. So the applicant had originally requested to rezone, as part of the larger rezoning, a little over 11 acres from R4 to the new S1 Community Service Zoning District, which because he had an intent and a vision of perhaps constructing an assisted living facility on a portion of the property. That particular aspect of the rezoning was withdrawn at the request of the applicant, and that was considered by the Planning Commission, that withdrawal, at their meeting in December. He did wish to proceed with the rezoning request involving the R2 portion of the property, and he would like to go ahead and request that that be changed to R4. When this was this amended rezoning request, and keep in mind that part of the rezoning request was always part of his overall rezoning application. It's just that he took out part of it and retained that portion of the rezoning. So when that was presented to the Planning Commission in December, the Commission looked at the question of whether R2, which is a low-density single-family residential zoning district like Fox Den, Village Green, was really appropriate where you are backing up to the interstate to the north, you have regional commercial to the east, and then pretty much to the south and west you have attached single-family, which is basically R4. So it made sense from a perspective of what the current plan of development is out there, kind of what's around the property, and the property, this portion of the property's proximity to the interstate, that this request to rezone the R2 portion to R4 was something that they could support. It's also consistent with the land use plan, which specifies a medium density residential. The R4 would be on the very low end of a medium density residential land use, but this request would be consistent with the land use plan. For those reasons, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this rezoning request, and the staff also recommends approval on first reading.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning of parcel 11601 as requested from R2 to R4.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Come back for a second reading next time. Now we move to Town Administrator's report.
Mayor, we've been a little short-handed the last few months in personnel with some vacancies that we've had, but I'm happy to report that we're back to full staffing almost. We have one position in Public Works that we're still wanting to fill, but some of you met Joe LaCroix tonight, our IT manager, and Joe's been a great asset to us. He got him from Florida, so he moved up from Florida and is getting his family here as soon as he can. But Joe just started in December. And we just had this week, we had Wendy Smith, who is our new PR coordinator, public relations coordinator. She used to be with the Shopper News, and now she's with the town of Farragut. So we're glad to have Wendy. And then also Beth Barrows is an administrative assistant in leisure services as well. She's been actually a part-time parks assistant for the last couple of years, but now she's going to be full-time admin assistant in leisure services. So we're glad to have all those employees on board and happy to have them with the town of Farragut. So with that, that's all I have to report tonight.
What's our head count now?
We're right at 50 full-time employees. We have a few, maybe I think 3 part-time, I guess you call it permanent part-time employees. And we have several part-time employees, like seasonal employees with park assistants, umpires, things like that. But when we talk about our head counts, usually we talk about full-time employees, and we're right at 50.
Yeah. Okay. We have no attorney tonight, so we have no attorney's report. And that just about ends. So we're now adjourned. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good meeting, right?
Yeah.